Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're recording this discussion with New Mexico State University in mid-August, so we're about 3 months until Giving Tuesday. And if you haven't tuned into our discussions before, you should know that we host these discussions to help higher ed campaign leaders inspire their audiences and also to reach goals by hearing from other successful campaign leaders. But before we dive in, I'm just going to introduce myself for those of you who are new to our recordings. I'm Heather Fields, and I've been working on Giving Tuesday for 4 years. In 2013, I was the quarterback of a Giving Tuesday campaign for the city of Baltimore, and our goal was to raise $1 million in a single day, Giving Tuesday 2013. At the time, we thought that was a heroic stretch effort, but at the end of the day, hundreds of nonprofits, foundations, and higher ed community leaders in Baltimore joined together in our campaign, and we ultimately raised $5.7 million. It was just a tremendous effort, a huge team effort, and very exciting. And since that time, I've shared the tools and the playbooks that we used with other civic campaign leaders. And for the last 2 years, I've worked on higher ed outreach for 92I, who are the founders of Giving Tuesday. In this higher ed outreach role, I publish free resources, and probably more importantly, I use this vantage point to find inspiring campaigns and best practice case studies to bring to our audience. We publish free tools 2 times a month, and we've also recently launched a dedicated higher ed page on the Giving Tuesday site. So I've got the URL here on screen, but for those of you who might just be listening, it's givingtuesday.org/higher-education. And if you check out that page, you'll see lots of case studies. You'll see some free toolkits and templates and planners that you can that you could use for your campaign, and also these recordings. We've got several recordings with campaign leaders. If you'd like to listen to those, there's some really great ideas there. And also encourage you to share the page to your entire team. And lastly on this page, if you have ideas for new tools or case studies you'd like us to provide, you can just let me know. I'll be happy to do that for you. And I'm going to share my email at the end of this session, so you'll have that. But today we have one of those inspiring campaigns I mentioned and its leader to share with you. You'll hear how New Mexico State University manages their Giving Tuesday campaign and also some lessons learned for all of us. I'm going to take a quick step back, though, just to give you an update on Giving Tuesday and its growth. It's been really exciting to watch Giving Tuesday continue to grow steadily. Last year, we had 98 countries and territories participate, and millions of people worldwide were donating to amazing organizations and institutions, as well as donating volunteer hours and hosting some really creative and inspiring acts of giving on the day. We also watched 85 community coalitions across the U.S. participating with campaigns, including cities like Charlotte. And as you can see from this graphic, the impact is real. Giving Tuesday is now the second biggest giving day of the year in terms of the number of donations, behind only December 31st. And it's the third biggest day in terms of dollars donated. Giving Tuesday is growing as donors are looking for places to engage and to give on Giving Tuesday. And we also are seeing growth continue in social media engagement and in the acts of generosity, such as volunteering that I mentioned earlier. But one thing we've observed over the 5 years of Giving Tuesday is that organizations who plan ahead to participate on Giving Tuesday are better able to capitalize on this behavior and host the most successful Giving Tuesday campaigns. Which brings us to today. I'm really excited to have New Mexico State University's campaign leader with us. A little bit about their campaign last year. The campaign exceeded their goals, receiving a total of $2 million in gifts from generous donors. I was doing some research, and I know Andrea is going to dig into this, but wow, the numbers are really impressive. There were 1,452 total donors, 845 online gifts, nearly 600 faculty and staff donors, more than 400 first-time donors, and 123 students made a gift, which was a huge increase from the prior year. So I'm really excited to learn more about how they did that. So I want to welcome Andrea Tawney, who's the VP for University Advancement at New Mexico State University. And as I said, she'll share how they developed this successful Giving Tuesday campaign. So Andrea, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing your campaign planning experience.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you should know, as I mentioned, we're always looking on the lookout for inspiring campaigns. It's really exciting to see, hundreds of schools participate. We were really inspired by your campaign last year. But before we dive into some questions from the audience, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about New Mexico State University. Folks that are listening are going to, be representative of schools of all sizes. So we've got community colleges, all the way up to big research institutions. So if you could tell us a little bit, Nick, where are you located? What's the size of the student base and the alumni base? And maybe more, too, about your department and its role. And I'll go on mute so you can answer those questions for us.
Sure, yeah. So New Mexico State University is a system, and we made sure to include the entire system as part of our Giving Tuesday initiative since we launched it in 2015. We are located in beautiful and sunny Las Cruces, New Mexico. And we're a town of a little over 100,000, but we border El Paso, Texas. So we're right on the border of New Mexico and El Paso, Texas. And our student population across our system, and when I say system, that means we have 4 community colleges that are under our umbrella. And so we have those spread out throughout the state, including one that's right on our campus in our county, which is Doñana Community College. And so in our entire system, we have about 25,000 students. Our Las Cruces undergraduate campus here at New Mexico State University is about 15,000. So you can see we have a pretty good amount of community college students as well. And our alumni base for under 4-year undergraduate degrees is a little over 8,000 when you add in all of the community college certificate programs and degrees from all of our community colleges. We have over 100,000, probably over 120,000 alumni that are classified as alumni. So we have a pretty significant alumni base as well as a pretty large spread across our geographic area in New Mexico. In terms of staffing, we have here at our advancement office, under our umbrella, we have the Alumni Association and our foundation, and we are a separate 501c3, but we're all university employees. So we have a little over 60 staff that are on our advancement umbrella. That includes alumni relations, alumni association, and our foundation board and such. And that's our staffing. Now, about last October, we had a merge with University Marketing Communications. So that was right before Giving Tuesday, which I can talk about later on, but that really leveraged additional university-wide resources for us because now Marketing Communications is under our advancement umbrella and under my leadership. So in that group, we have about 70 staff members under that group. And so combined, we're looking at over 130 staff under our entire umbrella since November of 2016.
Okay, great. That's really helpful context, and I can see the advantages of merging with marketing and communications after talking to a lot of other schools who are separate. So that's excellent. Okay, well, great. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. On screen, I've got some questions that we've received from our audience, and so let's just go ahead and walk through those. So the first one, why and when did your university decide to host a Giving Tuesday campaign?
So this started back in August of 2015, totally happened by happenstance. We had a leadership change here in advancement, and on my way in this role, I heard some staff members in a staff meeting saying that we had been talking about doing this Giving Tuesday effort, and this was about August. And of course, that leaves you with very few months to plan for your Giving Tuesday effort in November. But we all got very, very excited. It was a new initiative. It was something that we knew kind of on what everything we're reading on best practices, that this is a way to particularly engage our millennial and recent graduates because it's very cause-based and part of a bigger national movement that they could be a part of. And so that was really the deciding factor. The minute we heard about it and had started toying with the idea in August of launching our first Giving Tuesday effort, everyone was fully on board. Everyone was excited. It was really the first time that we felt like not only our team and our staff came together, but later you'll hear about how the entire university system came together to be part of this big movement. And then, of course, the success of the giving from our alumni and our generous donors. So that was really the biggest reason, is to get part of a bigger national movement that we can all be a part of and feel like we're moving the needle and making an impact for the work that we do here at our higher ed institution.
Okay, great. Okay. So interested in your team, so the team who supports Giving Tuesday, and how did you build the team, and how has that changed over time? I think I remember reading that you follow maybe a committee sort of structure. So if you could just describe that for the audience, that would be great.
Sure. So some lessons learned between 2015 and 2016 and now going into 2017. 2015 was fast and furious because we started so late in our minds, from August to November, with planning. So trying to create that buy-in and wanting everyone to have some participation in it, we started with a very large committee. So we must have had, I'm going to say maybe 15 to 20 people that were representative, from the accounting group to our IT group, to alumni office, to every group that was under our umbrella. We had multiple representatives, and so that really it really was helpful the first year, maybe to garner buy-in and to have everyone be a part of this initiative, and also because the resource and staffing was so heavy and we didn't know what we were walking into and what it was going to look like. But the second year, everybody's feedback from the team was, you really need to refine the team and really kind of let the directors of those areas funnel down the information and let them carry out the tasks for their respective areas for Giving Tuesday, rather than have so many people around the table, and really utilizing their time a little bit more wisely so that they're not sitting in those meetings throughout the planning process. And then also we knew that we couldn't take all of those people's time in going into 2016, because we started the planning much earlier. In 2016, we started in April, and so really we had to be really specific about who the representatives at that table were going to be, because we were taking up so much of their time on the planning end from April until launch in November. So in 2016, our committee I would say we probably went down to about, I think we were at 10 people. I think this year we're maybe 8 to 10 at the most, and we keep kind of refining that. We've delegated to one AVP, Associate Vice President, to be the project manager overall, and so that also is a little something different. We try to have kind of co-chairs with our AVP of Development, AVP of Alumni. This year we're going to go down to one chair and have them be the project manager of the initiative and oversee that committee.
Gotcha. Okay. So the next question is around communications planning. I know this is something, especially for our first-time campaign leaders, that feels like a daunting task. How many communications are we going to send out? Email, social media? When do we start? How do we start? Are we using video? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you guys plan your communications. That'd be very helpful for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one designated person who is really in that position of our communications and marketing for advancement specifically. That's their full-time job throughout the year. Of course, in staffing challenges, that position has been open. And so we were still trying to fill that, and have had some people kind of step in and help here and there. And then once we merged with marketing for the university, everyone kind of pitched in. But our first year, we were very fortunate to have a very talented team member who was in that role, and she created a very, in terms of template-wise, a traditional communications plan for our efforts. And within that plan, we, of course, incorporated our social media plan, our advertising plan with, whether it be print, whether it be ad, whether it be promoted post on social media. We were very social media heavy and very promoted post heavy, because promoted posts on social media are so inexpensive. So we did quite a bit of that. And then the first year we did a lot of emails to our donor and alumni database. And actually we learned in the first year our emails were too many. We were bombarding people, and we started looking at the click-through rate and the open rates, and those severely decreased in the days leading up to Giving Tuesday, and then continue to refine that for 2016 to reduce those. So really everything starts with if you don't have someone dedicated to advancement, that's your communications person, you really need to find someone who has that skill set and that has put together those types of plans before in any type of industry, that knows, the meat of what goes into that plan, and then you have to follow it. You have to let them lay it out, you have to give some input, and then everyone has to agree that we're going to follow it, because it also impacts your budget. If you're going to allot so much to marketing or different communications items, you're going to have to allot some funding for it. We did press releases, of course, so you have your, what I call the marketing budget, and marketing efforts, and then we had our communications, which was a lot of free promotion of it, which was through press releases. One of the biggest things that I would recommend is having your president or chancellor or your vice president do an op-ed piece. And so I did the op-ed piece. The first year, I believe the chancellor did the op-ed piece and released it to our newspaper partners. And then the second year, I did it. In both years, all of our local and statewide newspapers picked it up and ran it. And tons of alums, we say that our people aren't reading newspapers anymore, but it goes digital as well. So the response from that was pretty prevalent, and I had countless people reach out to me after those op-ed pieces were run in the digital online platform, as well as the hard copy newspapers. And so you've got to time a lot of, you have to have someone that's going to stay on top of the timing, the timeline for your communications plans, to make sure that all of those things are being prepared and approved and going out in the time frame that is laid out in the communications plan.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that was sort of our next question. So it sounds like you're fortunate to have a really robust communications plan to follow. Can you let us know a little bit, like, when do you start? It sounds like the op-ed happens, it sounds like just before Giving Tuesday, but do you start communicating with your audiences like in a week before Giving Tuesday or the day before? Just tell us a little bit about when the communications actually start happening.
So our emails probably start happening, I think we ended up doing about, it was 3 to 4 weeks in advance on 2016. And really, initially it was, some just totally informational, some memes or images, if you will, that went out on social media, and then like one email, a week. Don't over segment when you're sending those emails out. We try to do it too much by college and graduation, major, and it actually created more work and was not probably worth the work that was put into it. So then in 2016, we just did more general Giving Tuesday, informational, it's coming soon. We did some teasers, and that really was 3 to 4 weeks in advance for that. In your bulletins, in your annual reports, or your alumni magazines, as you're doing press releases throughout the year on the impact of your gifts and the generosity of donors throughout the year, we always put a plug in there, save the date for Giving Tuesday 2017. So we put some soft, reminders in all of our communications throughout the year. but really the real outreach starts about 4 weeks before in terms of communications. Now, outreach, though, in terms of engaging the community and letting the community and know about what the plans are and planning your giving. We have a Giving Tuesday headquarters, and we schedule local businesses and sort of VIPs and our mayor and everybody and campus partners to come in well in advance. I would say about 2 months we start getting the word out at community functions, Rotary clubs, that kind of thing. We're doing presentations, we're handing out save the date. Homecoming is typically in October for us, and so homecoming, whenever it falls in October, is usually our start of our outreach with our alumni, because we hand out at each of our homecoming events, especially those that are hosted in the college. We make sure on every seat at those events and at all of our activities for homecoming that we're starting to remind alums and friends that Giving Tuesday is coming. We also do, throughout the football season, we have a partnership that we pay a little bit of advertising funding for our third-party athletics partner, if you will. It's called Learfield. And we start doing promo of Giving Tuesday on the football field, the images and the screen and things like that, and at the basketball games throughout the football season as well.
Wow, that's great. What role, you mentioned the local businesses, what role do they play with your campaign?
Yeah, so we have looked to our local businesses to come in and be part of our Giving Tuesday headquarters. So we invite them to come in and do peer stewardship. They can come in and do thank you calls to donors. They can come in and write at our thank you note writing station to do thank yous. We invite them to come and do our kickoff, because that's high energy, and have them be a part of kind of ringing the bells in our kickoff of the day. We have asked them to leverage matching dollars. So, for instance, our utility company last year leveraged some matching funds, and we were able to celebrate that, and several other corporations and local businesses to come in and kind of present their check throughout the day. And we schedule those. We try to schedule those as much as we possibly can, so that every hour when we flip those numbers and we're updating on social media and on the website, we have a photo opportunity with each of those community businesses and community partners or donors that come in every hour throughout Giving Tuesday headquarters for those photo opportunities and social media things. So they've really gotten really excited about that. We engage our Chamber of Commerce and make them, the city, our mayor, they really, to whatever degree they're willing to be a part of Giving Tuesday, we want them to feel like it's their Giving Tuesday as well, because it's for our community. Our president has a town and gown commission that meets, I think, every other month, and I start reminding them and passing out save the dates and start that schedule in about October timeframe. Falls when we just really start kind of getting all of that scheduled together as well, and presenting to that town and gown group and asking them to spread the word as well. And we do ask our town and gown commission to all volunteer at some point throughout the day at Giving Tuesday headquarters.
Gotcha. You mentioned social media. You mentioned promoted posts. I was curious, are you focused primarily when it comes on social media on Facebook and Twitter, or which social media channels are you guys using?
So heavy Facebook, and then we do for promoted posts, and then Instagram and Twitter are our other two. Instagram's probably the second most heavy, because we have seen that that's our highest use or followership on Instagram. And then Facebook, for our demographic of alums and donors, is very heavily utilized and has a far reach for us. So we did all of our promoted posts through Facebook, and then we make sure to to also carry our social media efforts over to both Instagram and Twitter.
Okay, great. And one of the things we've observed over the last year or two is just the growth in video use. Is that something that you're doing as well? Were you guys using more video last year over the year prior?
We are, and one thing that we learned, we paid for a firm to do a video in 2015, but we didn't use it until we started doing promotion of 2016. So we took donors, particularly millennial donors who gave on 2015 Giving Tuesday, and featured them in our video for 2016. And it was almost, and so we used it, but what we've done more of this year and what we will do more of is more casual, informal videos. We have a better response when we do focus groups on a number of marketing initiatives on campus, not specific for Giving Tuesday. People respond more to those raw, what looks like unrehearsed videos. So we're going to be moving more toward those unrehearsed kind of raw footage and videos, and putting a really nice, good quality video together that shares the impact, but that's not so rehearsed and that we're not paying a ton of money for, because the response is better for those informal type of videos anyhow. So we will do more of that this year. Last year we didn't do a ton of it. What we do a lot of is sharing out of our live. We do like Facebook Live at the day of headquarters, and then do some videos after that we promote from headquarters. So we do a lot of that. Social media the day of, we have I'd say about 2 to 3 people doing just social media at Giving Tuesday headquarters.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds really familiar to discussions I've had with other schools around video. So the kind of iPhone authentic student shot video actually performs really well. Where they invest typically in video is sort of in the thank you video that they put together. So a lot of schools are sort of pre-producing that so they have it ready to go. But yeah, everything else is pretty much authentic and nearly real time. So yeah, that makes sense to me what you're saying. You can save a lot of money. Okay. So I read off some of your numbers earlier. I mean, they're really impressive, your success. And I wanted to dig into a couple of those. So the first thing I read was you guys attracted a large number of new donors. And I was wondering if there was anything you could share with us about what you think worked best to attract new donors.
Oh goodness, that's always the tough question, and the kind of the mystery to how we get those new donors. I have to say the matching funds are really what we think have been successful in both years. The first year having unlimited matching funds for any scholarship, new or existing, that any donor wanted to give to, blew it out of the water. And that's really what attracted new donors. The second year, we had limited match money. And we felt like so our new donors went down the second year. They were still substantial, but they went down. And some of what the feedback we kind of heard is that we put a cap on the amount per household. And even though it was a cap that we thought was based on their trend of giving for that population that we were appealing to, they felt like it wasn't the frenzy anymore. It wasn't I can give unlimited, even though the trend showed that they weren't going to give more than that per household. It just put a different, I guess, maybe a little more refinement to their giving, and kind of like in their psyche, it put a different perspective for them, is what we kept hearing. And so we feel like which is challenging because, no one has an unlimited match pool and you want to appeal to the masses. I mean, we always refine most of the time refine match money to scholarships unless we have a donor who designates for another project. But the first year was all we would match with scholarships, but it was unlimited. And so really the match money, any way you can leverage match money, but not try to be so sort of restrictive or segment too much, is always, I think, at a higher ed institution going to be very successful, but still try to align it with your goals. If, for instance, for us, our goal is to raise scholarship dollars, and particularly scholarship endowment dollars during our campaign. That's what we refined our matching money to in the first year.
Gotcha. Okay. You also had a lot of success at attracting faculty and staff gifts, and I was wondering what your approach was there.
Yeah, so the one thing that has worked really well to get everybody sort of in the giving game, if you will, and being a little competitive amongst each other in academia, is that very early on, I'd say about October again, we visit with the President's Academic Council and President's University Administrative Council, which I'm a member of as a vice president, and now they're kind of in the rhythm of it. By this past year, we had more challenges, but we ask each of the sort of VPs and deans and athletic director to really think about doing a match for their staff. And so that has gone really, really well. Now, it's become a little bit of an accounting challenge, so we've learned some do's and don'ts along the way with that, and continue to learn about that, and we'll implement, you know, some best practices next year or this year for 2017, because with an institution of our size, with all the challenges we were able to leverage, and for relatively small buckets of money, it became very tedious for the accountants to track all of that. So, but that really was the best way to get, you know, I think that having that leader in whichever unit leverage that match has been really successful, and then those they designate to whichever fund in their unit or college that they want to match it to. So it may be a particular scholarship, it may be for, you know, a student travel initiative that they're looking to fund, or maybe they just want to incentivize new payroll deduction donors. So we leave it to them really, and we will have to refine that a little bit for accounting purposes. But that really has gotten their staff on board, and then really gotten our leaders on board. I asked all the community college presidents to issue a challenge. Number one thing is they made sure that our provost and president also issued challenges campus-wide to something. So we have a food pantry, and the president and provost always match dollar for dollar any contributions made to our Aggie Cupboard, which is our food pantry, which serves our system. So that's one kind of exciting thing. We also made sure that all of our boards, particularly our Board of Regents and our Foundation Board, all in 2015 wanted to make sure before we even started announcing to the public and to our campus communities that we had 100% participation regardless of dollar amount or level. And so that was a really strong message to send to the university community as well as external community, that kind of our managing boards, if you will, had bought into this and believe in us and our campus and our mission, and that they've all participated 100%. So that's been very helpful as well.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I think I also read that you guys did some major gift announcements on the day. I think I read there was 3 major gift announcements, and I was just curious about that strategy too, when you announced them, and if you staggered them throughout the day, or did you start the day with those to kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so we have those, of course, lined up, you know, ahead of time to announce. We always do try to do our largest one at the beginning of the day when we open GivingTuesday headquarters, and then we stagger them throughout the day, and try to do something about midday lunchtime when people are coming from work and that kind of thing to drop off gifts and checks and such. So definitely staggered those and had those lined up in advance. The other thing that we do with the matching money to leverage some of those major gifts so that we have some funds raised right out the gate, we will say, okay, this year we have a donor who has given us $200,000. Out of that, we're going to leverage X number of 12,500 scholarship dollars for matching for a new scholarship endowment. And scholarship endowments here are $25,000. So basically you get a one-to-one match, or you can give more, but we will only match your scholarship up to $12,500. And we've assigned those to each, a certain number of those to each of the development officers. And by October, they have to have those signed on the dotted line from their donors. Otherwise, those dollars for match new scholarship endowments go back into the pool. So we stagger those throughout the day as well, because those are all new scholarship endowments that we've leveraged GivingTuesday dollars as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I just thought of was we also do live radio remotes. And that has been super successful to drive in-person traffic to make their contributions to come in and do GivingTuesday headquarters. So we have a radio partner in town that has 3 radio stations, and they come and do a live remote in the morning and then in the lunch hour. And that's gone really well to drive traffic and raise awareness for GivingTuesday as well.
Oh, that's great. That's really smart. I was just thinking back to when we did the Baltimore campaign. We did something similar. We focused heavily on the weather people and the traffic of reporters, and we tried to come up with clever ways to get them to talk about our campaign. That was really successful because they have some really big Twitter followings. We actually had weather persons doing live, remotes, and so that's really clever. That's great that you tried that. All right, well, I was going to shift into 2017. As I said, for our audience, it's about mid-August when we're doing this recording. So, Andrea, tell us where you are with your 2017 planning. Did you start the day after last GivingTuesday?
We typically thought April to start was always a good time frame. So in 2016, we started in April, but because this past year we had our comprehensive campaign public launch in April, we all needed a little break and didn't start until, I believe, July was when we started planning for 2017 and implemented sort of our new small committee structure and our new project manager overseeing the process and keeping everything on track. So we're, but I don't recommend starting that late if it's your first year. We feel a little more confident this year that it's our third year that we could start a little later, give a little bit of breathing room for the team for the launch. So this year with planning, we've had, I think they put on everybody's calendars who's part of the committee for now bi-weekly meetings, and those decrease as we get closer just because all things are sort of in order by that time, and we leave them on the calendar. That way, if something comes up and they need to meet, they'll meet. If not, they cancel the meeting. So now they've had, since July, they've had several meetings and already have, the whole plan kind of mapped out and did some tweaking to the overall plan, but definitely assembled the team and gotten the meetings underway so far.
Okay, great. So you mentioned the new committee structure, a smaller committee. Anything else new you're trying this year?
Oh, gosh. I would say the other thing we have lined up already is we definitely, a couple months ago, always have our matching program and what we're going to do with that released to our development officers. So that's already underway, and we did a big staff meeting and kind of challenged everybody with those assignments of the allotment of the major gift, the new scholarship endowment matches that we've leveraged. So those have been assigned. That's new. So moving right into what's new this year. Last year, it was almost a free-for-all. We said, okay, we have, for instance, 20 12,500 scholarship endowment matches to leverage. Go. And so, and didn't put a deadline, didn't put a whole lot of restriction, didn't say it had to be signed on the dotted line by this day. It had to be new scholarship endowments, but, it was basically a free-for-all. And what happened was, of course, everyone started coming back, and by the time we started saying, okay, this is it, they said, well, I've already talked to 2 donors. I don't want to let them down because now they're ready to sign on the dotted line. So we had overcommitted and had to, of course, go back to the coffers of the foundation funds and try to make sure we matched all of those donors who development officers had been talking to. So this year, what we are doing is about a month ago, we went ahead and said, okay, we have 24 scholarship endowment matches, and we allotted 2 to each development officer from each of their areas, including our community colleges. And they have to have those signed, filled, and delivered by October 1st. Otherwise, it goes back into the pool, and then it becomes first come, first served in terms of how we reallot those, because that gives the development officers time over homecoming, because homecoming is the end of October. If they need to work on some of those during homecoming, they'll have another month to work on those while they have quite a few alums and donors in town. So that's new. Let's see, what else do we have new? We were toying with the idea of doing a satellite GivingTuesday headquarters in Albuquerque, because that's where our major population for the state and our largest alumni population is. But we had to, about a month ago, decided that it would spread our staff way too thin and might dilute our efforts in putting on just a really spectacular GivingTuesday headquarters here. So that's something, if you have multiple campuses, if you have enough staff at those campuses, or you have a great plan that you can implement there. We just had some things kind of fall apart that came together initially, and then at the last minute just didn't work out. And so at some point we may try that, and we were going to launch it this year, but it just, all the pieces didn't come into play as quickly as we would have liked. But that's certainly something that we will be looking at for next year, and that others who have campuses spread out or at other locations may think about.
Okay, gotcha. Have you guys settled on your 2017 goal? And if so, would you share it with us?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a debate right now. I've got some people who want to shoot for the stars and go for $2 million this year. And we also want to be realistic, though, and so some of us are erring on the side of caution. So I'm thinking we may land maybe 1.5, somewhere in between there. Our first year, 2015, was $250,000. Obviously, we blew that out of the water, and we're very blessed to have done so because we had so much matching money. And then in 2016, I think we raised it. Oh gosh, I can't even remember now. I think maybe $500,000 was what we had raised it, because we wanted to be conservative again because we didn't have as much matching money. And so this year we have some that would like to go to $2 million, but I'm thinking we're going to land about 1.5.
Got it. Okay, great. And I have 2 more questions for you. So one of them is around downtime. So some of our campaign leaders are looking for ideas to kind of fill the lull in the day. So they usually, go out of the gate in the morning on GivingTuesday, and it's busy, donations are coming in, and then, they'll get a little pickup again around lunchtime. And then there's sort of this lull kind of in the afternoon and then again in the evening. I was curious if you've seen that, and if so, do you have like communications plan to sort of fill those voids or challenges that happen during those times in the day?
Absolutely. Our headquarters is like bustling all day long. We reduced the time period, though. I think the first year we did maybe 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. This past year we went to 8 to 5. And so we work on staggering those those people we know are going to come in and make those gifts with check presentations and flipping the numbers. So one of the big things that we do that also spurs the social media that keeps things going online is we do a very simple number flip every hour. And last year we changed it, and we do 1 hour we'll do a number flip of total dollars raised, and the next hour we'll do number of donors, so participation. So we try to emphasize participation and giving dollar amount. And so we also try to line up, again, our donors, board members, community members, business owners to come in and flip those numbers every hour. And so that really keeps up the momentum. And then those live radio remotes really help as well. The other thing we do is to engage your students. I mean, students, having them come in at different times throughout the day, and we have what we call college student ambassadors, and so we work with whoever oversees the student ambassador program for each of the colleges and have them come in throughout the day and participate. Some of them man the student area. Every time a person makes it's their first gift made to NMSU system, we ring the bell and make a big deal about it. So generally every time a student comes in that's off their first time gift, we make a really big deal about it, and it just keeps the energy going throughout the day. So between your communications work that you're doing, your social media, and then your Giving Tuesday headquarters logistics, you can really stagger that out, so that way there's not a huge lull online, social media, or in person. We do a kickoff in the morning that we make sure that all of our leadership is at, our president's at, and local community and that kind of thing. And then we do a closeout where our regents and, we make sure we schedule everybody so that that closeout's really celebratory as well and high energy.
Great. And what do you do to thank donors? I think I read that you have or you mentioned earlier that folks do actually handwritten notes, it sounds like, or handwritten signage. Tell us a little bit about your thanking strategy.
Yeah, so we have done some thank you videos on social media after. We've done we'll send via email that we have ready to go, and we'll push send on. We have pre-printed cards with our Giving Tuesday logo on it, and then we have the handwritten cards that volunteers are writing. We have a phone bank that's a thank you phone bank, and that's another way you can schedule and stagger people to come in and do that. And that's another great way to engage your campus partners is we ask for volunteers, and we keep a schedule throughout the day for them to make thank you calls. So if you're, and that requires, of course, some strategic data mining, if you will, of who you're going to thank and that kind of thing. But all of those phone calls are probably the most powerful, I would say, throughout the day, and it really energizes your campus partners when they're thanking people, because they're just shocked how gracious donors are and how excited they are and grateful to get a personal call from a coach, an athletic director, a student, your ASNMSU, your student body president, the president, the provost, your dean, that kind of thing. So those are kind of the different areas that we work to thank our donors throughout the day and leading up to and after. And then, of course, we have an email just ready to go that has all you have to do is plug in the numbers from that day. So the very next morning, we plug in those numbers, the image and everything's created ahead of time, and then people have an instant update of where we ended the day with in terms of impact numbers.
That's great. Yeah, those calls are such powerful human connections. I can remember doing those calls myself when I was a student, and it was really powerful to talk to some of the older alumni and kind of hear their stories, and they were very appreciative of hearing from a person to get an update. So that's great. It's a great idea. Okay, so we're about up at the end of our hour. I just had wanted to ask if there was anything else you wanted to share. Again, we've got some first-time campaign leaders. Maybe there's something you wish you had known then that you know now that you could share with our new campaign leaders, or anything else that I might not have asked but you'd like to convey.
Yeah, I would say our biggest learning point after our first year was people always say, you can never overthink your donors. And I have to tell you, I lived it. I got the feedback. People said, you overthanked us in 2015. You know, we were so concerned with retention of those donors because we had so many new donors, and this was our first time participating in Giving Tuesday. And the challenge is when you're in a big university system is that we thanked them in our various ways. And then the colleges thanked them, and maybe their department professor thanked them, and then, you know, whatever other outlet. I mean, there were so many people willing to thank the donors that by the time all was said and done, I think one donor counted, and they had received like 6 thank you cards. And they're like, save the postage, you know, it's fine, you did it, you thanked us, it's awesome. And so they weren't upset by it by any means, but a lot of the feedback we got after 2015 was, you really overthanked us. So we really tried to cut back the number of central thank yous that we kind of ran out of advancement office, and then really try to coordinate with the development officers what they were going to be doing as much as they possibly could, because we know departments, you know, do what they want to do as well. But just trying to have a little better grasp of different levels of stewardship, because that was the one biggest lesson learned. If you ask anybody from our team, is that we over bombarded people with all of our stewardship and thank yous as a system. So, but that's probably my number one tidbit.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate you sharing your experience and especially your advice with the audience. And we definitely are looking forward to celebrating. This is going to be your third, I think you said, Giving Tuesday campaign. Is that right?
Yes.
Or no, 15. Yeah, this will be your third, right? You're starting 15? Yep.
Yes.
So we'll be watching from Giving Tuesday headquarters. And that's all we have today. I'm going to just flip to the last slide here so that folks that are listening and watching know how to get in touch with me. So as I said, if there are specific case studies you'd like us to develop or tools that you'd like us to develop, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to work on those. And my email is hfieldsmarketing@gmail.com. And again, you can find all of our free resources as well as additional recordings at givingtuesday.org/higher-education. And that's it. I'm going to wrap up for today. Andrea, thank you again so much. We really appreciate your time. And I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, and thanks for having NMSU be a part of the webinar.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye now.
Thanks.